Dungeon Master's Diary, Entry 10. The party has made their way to the Feywilds to partake in the Festival of Spring, or the Festival of Rebirth. There they have partaken in dancing, fishing, drinking, and fortune-telling as activities, including a Feywild pastime called Thwacky, a game where two teams opposed throw heavy wooden balls at each other. Throughout the festival, they have met up with some new people, some people that they have heard about, but none more than Krieg and Erin, enemies of the Stormbreakers. They appear to not be hostile in any way, shape, or form, stripped of armor, weapons, magic, as have the party. And now, after a night of enjoyment, they rest up and wait for the day to come and what activities may lie in the following day. Back on the material plane, Henra has moved on to go find Sir Lorcan of Aegon, now taking residence in Orthanum, in a place called Via Bianco. A very run-down estate in dire need of repairs, well underway. And now all that remains is for Lorcan to train Henra to a peak physical condition and to enhance his charisma. So, pretty fun session. A lot more lighthearted, which I'm glad about. But of course, knowing me, I had to throw in the Hands of Nasserai in there somewhere. Granted, because, one of them is a ranger, so ties to nature. Why not just throw them in there, just to make sure? And just seeing the party enjoy a game of Thwacky, it was great fun. I've never seen them so competitive. Dotrim was just untouchable because barbarians at such a high level are so hard to hit just as a standard. And when I create monsters and that, they have the upper hand. Sometimes, some creatures are just easy to wipe out. Not often, but I'm gonna change that a little bit. Shouldn't be too bad. But nonetheless, I do try and make sure that the guys have a lot of fun. I mean, there's drinking, there's dancing, make a little performance check, very underrated skill in my opinion. Fishing, survival, go to the fortune teller, go to Shaman Nebe, and just see what their fates have become since returning from Ambanshir. It's been a wild time there, and now it's for them to transition to the polar opposite of just joyful and uplifting and just ass in the wind, just enjoying life. Just knowing that the party had gone to Tybal just before they left, which I failed to mention in the quick recap there, mostly because it didn't fully pertain to the situation that kind of took shareholder of the entire session. But they spent a lot of damn money there. Toma came away with some new armor, courtesy of Daron, who has slid into the DMs, as it were, or made the first step. Which, finally, I'm not going to deny that everything that Daron has tried to do to create enough sort of foundation to start building on a relationship, it's going to be kind of hard at times, just solely due to the fact that Toma is a very shrewd person, doesn't enjoy insanely exciting things, but get a drink in him, he's all about the party. I can relate to that heavily. But yeah, it was good. I mean, it's a nice relaxed RP session. Quite a lot of good stuff happened outside of the session in our text channel for RP, which gives me nice, wholesome feelings of my RPG roots, which is really good. I'm just curious to see how the party are going to take their fortune tellings to heart. Uh, David went to Shaman Nebe, Dotram went to Shaman Nebe, Daron went as well. Uh, the other people they took along with them haven't done it, just solely because of the fact that they don't really think about it all too much. Tank especially, he's I don't know. Tank did tag along, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. No, he didn't. Ignore me. You know, when you write notes and you try to remember, and it's like, hey, Tank was mentioned, and I was realizing that Tank isn't there. He's indisposed at the moment. That'll be what I was meaning in those notes. So ignore me. But Toma and Melia especially, she doesn't care about her fate. She's very much in tune with nature, and most dryads or nymphs or satyrs will know when their lifespan is coming to an end. They never look like they age, but they know when they've had enough time, and they'll just be like, okay, game over, I guess. But they are not to be trifled with, of course. They are beings of the inner planes. You know? But when I consider Toma going to Shaman Nebe, I'm very curious to know how he would react, how he would feel in a situation quite like that. Dotran and David were transported to the ancestral plane through basically kind of like a, what's the word? Yeah, not hallucinogenic, but more of a mental prison sort of style. Just sort of felt their body sink away, but it was in fact their mind just elevating to the next planes above into a demi-plane called the ancestral plane, where they meet basically figures of ancestral wisdom. David met Thek, who is a ancestor of war. Doesn't speak. Big humanoid creature with long limbs, taking a little bit of a smaller form for reasons. Very quiet, very cryptic. But David saw like golden fields, elk, deer, flying eagles, a sun permanently stuck in a setting, motion. Beautiful landscape. Uncovered kind of things you wanted to know a little bit more of. Dotran, on the other hand, and there's the quick fun thing about Dotran's reading. Dotran did it. Dotran's player did it in the RP channel, which is our text channel, and there's a reason he saw things that he saw, mostly due to his alignment being so badly twisted to chaotic evil that what would have been a beautiful sunset scape beyond was a dark twilight forest where you could hear like owls hooing and wolves prowling in the shadows, and a 9-headed samurai lich called the Wolf sitting at a campfire smoking from a 4-foot long pipe. There he uncovered that Aaron and Krieg were up to something at this festival called a Karsal, which is an old representation of their, undeath or protection, things like this. It's represented by a snake eating a sword. Kind of like a really odd symbol, but it is quite common in the Fae, depending on what situation they're in. But he's like freaking out and it's like, oh, what's Aaron going to do to my brother? And it's like, well, the wolf will only tell you as much as he knows, It's kind of hard to fully explain things because I like to keep fortune telling quite vague, so it's open to interpretation, as is most fortune telling. It's more subjective than objective, and what he took away from that was a lot of things. As well did Daron when he went. Now, Daron's the only one where I had prepped for him to go to the ancestral plane, but lo and behold, he sort of threw me through a hoop for a second. I was like, I'll go there because everyone else has done it. And he's like, no, I want to speak to the spirits of the woods. I'm like, okay. So he drinks this hallucinatory sort of beverage. Not a tea or anything. It's more like a syrup. The recipe of which I did write down, and it's made out of wolfsbane, hemlock, and mandrake root. So that's a poisonous brew, but it's such a small amount of dosage that it just sort of makes you see things. There's a couple of magic mushrooms in there as well, a bit of psilocybin. But he transports himself into like this sort of hallucinatory plane, not another plane of existence, more like a projection of himself, and he wanders out of the tent and sees a purplish campfire, and around it are snakes and owls, wolves, deer, and some birds of paradise. And as he sits down and basks in the flames, a figure dressed in a red dress approaches, the lady in red, basically a very renowned spirit, sort of like the Lady of the Lake, but of the forest. And she gave him information, not cryptic at all, but trying to keep it a little bit more to the point. And at the end of it, he comes away going, I need to go and do this because I want to unravel my corruption and my fate. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So I gave him the option to do the Carcel, which is where you have to sacrifice a loved one and bathe in their blood, or there's another version of it where you take the tears of a loved one, but then there's the one that you wanted to do, which is the more complicated one. It's very bizarre. You have to sleep on a raft of redwood under a willow tree, and you have to do all this basically just provocative stuff and just sort of obscenely complicated. And the fact that he wants to do it kind of shakes me a little bit. I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you make it harder for yourself? Mind you, the other option, taking the tears to the lake at the top of the multiverse and dropping them in and then shaving your hair to your scalp, is very hard to do in the first place. Getting to Mount Celestia is very hard because you can't instantly teleport to the upper planes, the higher planes, just straight to Mount Celestia. So it's kind of hard. You would have to physically travel across the boundaries, going through the in-between, which is limbo, essentially. Which is a deep road. So kind of part of the Shadowfell, but there are different kinds of deep roads. Like there's the Shadowfell deep roads, and then there's the Limbo deep roads, both of which are very unpleasant places. But then there's the deep roads of Pandemonium, and that's the worst place because you can't hear anything, and there's monsters trying to eat your face constantly, and you can't see them at all. But now knowing what the party want to do, I managed to create a sort of situation where they can do whatever at this party and make new friends. They made a new friend called Craven, who, as the player of their own rightly suggested in the chat, it's like, oh, guess we're going to meet this person in the next campaign. I said, yeah. Well, I didn't say yes, but yeah, they're gonna, because it's a low level NPC, and I designed the character not to be edgy or anything, but more downtrodden, sort of melancholic, sort of tired of the things she has seen. It's like, okay, moving on from that, and then a little bit of conversation with Dotrin and Krieg that was quite poignant, and just knowing that at the end of it they might have to kill him, they might have to kill Krieg, and knowing that their entire debacle in Anbanshir might have been for nothing. They don't know. Krieg would not tell Dotrin, and I intended it that way solely because Krieg himself is not in a good place at the moment. Ever since they killed the Dreadlord and came back, Krieg's been having like night terrors and sleeplessness and fatigue, and he's starting to get sick. Not in like a disease kind of way, he's just getting very ill just from tiredness. And there's a few horrible cards up my sleeve for Krieg and Dotrin respectively, but how it's going to work, it will depend on the actions that they take or Dotrin takes against him, or see how well a little thing I have planned goes. As the point of this recording, I had recorded this video earlier. However, for some reason, it corrupted. So here I am again. But in that time, between the last recording of this episode and this recording, Krieg and Toma have had a conversation where Krieg has basically vented a little bit, which kind of shows a little bit more of a humanity. Toma being Toma, she's the golden boy. It's like, okay, I'm going to try and be your friend. I'm going to help you out. Because, they're both paladins. They've both been through hardship. Toma always feels abandoned. Krieg feels abandoned. So they're almost like a perfect match in a puzzle. But Toma's that corner piece that Krieg needs to start rebuilding or building a new part. And I just hope that all goes well. And, Daron doesn't get jealous because he's a ladron now, so his emotions shift rapidly. Dotrin doesn't get angry that, Toma's basically best friends with the enemy, or will be friends with the enemy. I just really want to see the outcomes of what is happening. So if I went away for, drinking, I thought, okay, I'll pick that up in the next session, which will be good, in my opinion. I think that once everything is all done and dusted, the party will actually come to realize that it's kind of hard to explain, but how the hands of Nasarai are no different. Like, they're no way better people or worse people than the Stormbreakers. The Stormbreakers themselves, as NPCs, have done some horrendous stuff that the party don't know about. Mostly because the ones that know about it have died. Like, Snake has died. Cypher has died. Jericho's dead. Quite a lot of them. Sealy died when they first, like before they met any of them. Well, it's when they met Cypher. She was basically terminating Sealy's life support, which was a mechanical mechanism just slowly giving her breath, and like a steampunk style of a respirator. But just turned it off because it was pointless. I really just think what's going to happen during the next session, because it's going to be kind of an interesting thing, because I name every session. From only in this campaign have I named every session, and every time I make a teaser I forget to post it, and I end up doing it on the same day as the next session, so it's a pain, which I guess is a little bit better than just doing it like a week before. But the next session is called In the Woods Somewhere, which could relate to Aaron and Krieg doing something, could relate to just something happening in the woods. It could be anything. But it also relates to what Henra's doing, which is being trained by Sir Lorcan, who prefers to operate in wooded areas, because if a spell goes wrong, it can just be contained, nothing will happen. Which I think Henra is going to have a good time with. A lot of physical training, a lot of mental acuity being developed from reading, speaking. He's going to go through some hellish things that Lorcan's going to do, and it's going to be public speaking for the charisma boosts, and I'm going to love every second of it. It's going to be good. But that's the only way to really boost charisma, or you can try and barter with Sir Lorcan to try and get that persuasion up a little bit. But when it's said and done, Lorcan is a paladin with some rogue levels, quite a lot of rogue levels actually. He's an epic character. He's a paragon character, sorry, which means he's level 40, which is 10 above what the party do, but paragon characters are designed to be trainers and nothing more, but their combat prowess is always on their sheets in case. Hence why Ambanshir was a little bit easier than what it would have been, because they had Vidar and Sir Lorcan. But they have met Kryn Malvar, who is a paragon character. The only one that they kind of have left to meet is Ina, who is the Stormcaller, but no one knows where they are. They do have the sort of scroll for a Stormcaller, but it doesn't lead you anywhere. It's a matter of finding where this temple is, but I do kind of hint at it in the sort of script I'm writing for Tales from the Realm, which will be Andorol next. Oh boy, that sucks. But yeah, I'm diverting here. The train has changed tracks. So once Lorcan has basically done all he can do, he's just going to be like, I can't teach you any more than I know. I.e., Henra's going to have a bump to dexterity, constitution, and charisma, and maybe intelligence, depending on which way it goes. And I think what'll happen is Henra will probably have to go to Stormcaller Ina, solely due to the fact that Ina is a storm sorcerer in their own right, and a very powerful one at that. I made the Seven Seekers; they're very powerful, but Ina is like the grand daddy of them all. Like, he could kill them with no hesitation, no problem at all. But it's a matter of finding, and I know that some of the players want to actually go do that in their downtime. and they will probably find them. And once they do, they'll just have to try and not poke a few buttons, because those buttons will give you a lightning strike straight to the heart and it will kill you. So yeah, I'm hoping that the character development in the next session, as well as from this session plus its RP on top of it, will create a sort of kind of odd counterbalance to what they perceive of other people. So a good example is Krieg and Toma. Toma doesn't see Krieg as a horrible person, just sees him as a downtrodden person and needs someone to just help. But Krieg sees Toma as being basically bound like a slave to the Stormbreakers. So they're basically teaming up, drinking heavily, and just partying hard. So I'm gonna enjoy the next session. I hope the guys enjoy the one preceding it, succeeding it. Sorry, after it. This is going to become like a sort of murder mystery sort of thing. But yeah, it'll be good. I still haven't decided on what next session it's going to be called. Well, the one after In the Woods Somewhere. It depends. I'll probably call it Cluedo if I'm brutally honest. So I have named them after some fun things, like this session, Season of Crime. It's it's Feywilds, it's Season of Spring. There's some enemies there that are very prominent criminals. So I was like, okay, Season of Crime, and then I'm like, oh wait, that's a David Bowie song. I like it even more. It's Staying. But maybe I'll start doing that. Maybe next campaign I'll start just finding music titles and just putting them as the session titles entirely. But it'll be nice once this campaign is over to just be like, flat out, Dungeon Master's Diary goes back to episode 1, session 1, next campaign. It will be fantastic, and I cannot wait for that, because anyone that's outside of the group that listens in on this are probably like, why is it session 71/72/73, etc., etc. Well, it'll be 72, of course, because there's 10 entries. But yeah, that's how many sessions I've been in here, and only recently has my spark of the YouTubes come back. So, and I have better equipment, and I'm gonna have better equipment next time in like a couple of, like maybe a month or so. The beast will be built, and all will be good, and quarantine will hopefully be over, so life will be good. Yeah, sort of diverting again from D&D, chatting. That's always nice at the end. But I have sessions to plan and people to scare and backstories to exploit. So, as always, stay safe out there, adventurers.